My name is Lauren Johnson, and for my project, I was most interested in the works we had discussed by Cindy Sherman. Here's a closer look into her life, what she was about, and her works of art. Cindy Sherman is an American artist who was born on January 19, 1954, and is still alive today. She is 68 years old and was born in Glen Ridge, New Jersey. She moved to Long Island, New York to enroll at the State University of New York at Buffalo and originally majored in painting. After she started off here, she switched to photography as her major, which is where she then started her journey. Her work was greatly inspired by the New York lifestyle around her and her era of television and film culture she witnessed. She based most of her works on viewers' portrayal of women being sex objects. Her series of work included hundreds of untitled film stills that were photographs of herself in different settings of everyday life, revealing the life of a woman. Her untitled film stills lasted from 1977 to 1980, where she created her self-portraits about the fakeness of role-playing and the contempt for the domineering male audience who mistakenly read the images as sexy. She wore wigs and costumes, modeling for her self-portraits to evoke images from the realms of advertising, film, television, and fashion that challenged the cultural stereotypes that these forms of media supported. After 1980, she continued to create her film stills, but with a different focus. She began to use color film prints and focused on the facial expressions by concentrating on the lighting essence it brings out into very large prints. She used prosthetics, abundant amounts of makeup, and changed her work to a more grotesque and sinister realm of film. She made photographs that encapsulated mutilated bodies and reflected concerns such as death, eating disorders, and insanity. Once her work switched to focus on the depths of society's acceptance of stereotypes of women and what they turned to be versus just simply a woman's role in society like she previously captured, her works became much less ambiguous. In the 1990s, she returned to her cliched works of female identities and introduced mannequins into her photographs. 2 years after that, she directed a film entitled The Office Killer that was dark and led into some of her next works. She then created works of violence mixed with artificially with a juxtaposition. Shortly after, she continued her juxtaposition films with a series of photographs in which she posed as a Hollywood woman with large amounts of makeup and fake boobs or implants to appeal to the fakeness of society. Her work became displayed at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Los Angeles, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, where her work was displayed alongside the film that inspired her series. Here's a little about the artist's interpretation and information. As I had mentioned previously, Cindy Sherman went to college in New York at the State University of New York. She originally majored in painting, but later ended up switching to photography, which is where her work began. Once she graduated, she started working on her well-known untitled film still series. She got a studio in downtown New York, which allowed the area to greatly inspire her works. The fashion, personality, and everyday life of the New Yorkers played well into inspiration as well. Since she grew up in a quiet suburb, she described her childhood as sheltered and lonely. From this, she said that TV series, films, and advertising had a strong influence on her as well. She had an obsession with these films and was greatly inspired by the culture and consumerism, the typical role women play compared to the typical dominant male, performance artists, and a fascination for disguise. All these things were incorporated in creating her famous film stills. In addition to that, she liked leaving these untitled, undescribed films to allow for a viewer's individual interpretation. When asked in an interview about Cindy's inspirations, she was quick to mention the early works of Warhol. Sherman created a work of a bunch of wallet-sized photographs that was for a class assignment. The way she did this was by using herself as a model and subject. She transformed her appearance by exaggerating her makeup, changing her hairstyle, and diversifying her dress. The addition of such accoutrements as eyeglasses, jewelry, and a cigarette further affect her metamorphosis from a drab girl to a seductive vamp. The burlesque sensations are shown throughout her mutation of images displayed in this work. She took these photographs in a photo booth, which was what Warhol did in the early ages of his work. Although her images are distinctive of Warhol's, the creative ideology of the piece was where the inspiration was derived from. This was then placed into her further creation of her self-portraits tied with disguise in different settings. Here I have added the pictures to give a better representation of her inspiration from Warhol. On the left right here you have Sherman's work, and on the right you now have Warhol's creation. This work of the series was created in 1978 and was titled to be her untitled film still number 21. I started with this piece because it is Cindy Sherman's most famous piece. The piece incorporates her use of costume styling and features architecture. This close-up allowed her to best capture the lighting with the angle of the woman displayed, which are the important aspects of photography that got her going on her series. This work is untitled Film Still Number 2. Since she leaves her artwork up for interpretation, in combination with the background knowledge I have about her, I decided to describe these all in my specific interpretation. She loved to use wigs as a disguise, which I thought was displayed here. It also shows the woman out of the shower, which expresses femininity, admiring herself in the mirror. This piece most likely was meant for male viewers as a look into a woman's everyday life. This is untitled Film Still Number 7 in 1978. This work to me seems like a candid shot, although it is staged. It shows more of a behind-the-scenes look at a woman. It is not typically how you'd see a woman displayed, which she used her works to go against the typical stereotypes of woman behavior as we see here. This is untitled Film Still Number 40. This reveals another wig and a woman looking caught off guard as usual with her works. She seems to have dropped her groceries, which to me sort of highlights the view that women aren't always perfect and do make mistakes, which she showed through this picture. The use of eyeliner also helps show her facial expressions. This work was part of the series made in 1978 as untitled Film Still Number 12. This one, the woman looks distressed and conveys many emotions. Women are seen as emotional beings, so I feel like this appeals to the stereotype with added dramatic effect. In this film still number 16, created in 1978, we see the woman smoking a cigarette. It is not very ladylike to smoke, which also appeals to her feminist views, displaying here again. This work was created in 1979 as untitled Film Still Number 27. We see the glass in her hand and her makeup running down her face. Women often wear makeup and are told not to cry because it ruins it and takes away from the beauty of a woman. In this photo, she seems maybe emotionally drunk, which is not a typical advertised look for a woman. This one also produced in 1979. This is an untitled film still number 29. This work appears to be a woman passed out in the corner maybe. It is a very candid look, again, one that is not typically revealed about a woman, which seemed to be a common theme. This work was explained to best highlight the view of women leaving their hair unkempt and looking away in a setting to apply their makeup if they wanted to apply any at all. This one helps describe femininity and a woman's choice to choose how they want to appear. And this was untitled Film Still Number 62 from 1977. Although the main piece to Sherman's fame revolved around her untitled film still from 1977 to 1980, after 1980 she continued to make more film stills but in a new way. Sherman switched her work from black and white realistic self-portraits in actual environments to colored films in a projected environment. These are additions to her untitled film stills, but are not as much considered part of the original collection. She started these works in 1980 and has been making additions in the years following. There is no official time span for these colored projected works. This film still number 223 is from her change in work after her original film still series. This was made in 1990 and was created to highlight her feminist art style. This film, untitled Film Still number 359, was created in 2000 to over-accentuate the use of makeup that women wear. She put on way too much makeup on purpose to reveal a sort of clownish look, while also highlighting how much makeup women in LA wear to give a fake appeal. In conclusion, Cindy Sherman was a huge contribution to the art of photography. She is best known for her film stills, which she originally created from 1977 to 1980. Although those were her best-known works, she also continued to create film stills after that series and further developed her work. She highlighted femininity in her works as well as the male audience members viewed women. It is a closer look into everyday life while also staging some portraits. All her works were self-portrait images to show herself or a woman in an isolated territory, which helped give her a feel of true life and representation she was going for, as well as demonstrating the refusal of women to comply to how people think they should act. I thought her works were very unique, and I loved the variety of displays with the incorporated underlying theme and messages. And then here is a copy of my works cited.